Hello, and welcome once again to The Old Man Speaks. I'm Joshua. I come to you 3 times a week and talk to you for 5 minutes. For decades now, I've been playing in senior facilities, a lot of nursing homes. And one of the great things about doing that is you meet some fascinating people. But I have never met one more fascinating than the late Sidney Warner, who passed away in June of 2011. We were at a local nursing home, pretty low functioning clientele. I was playing with my daughter Esther, who was playing the Irish whistle, and a gentleman wheels himself into where we're playing, had not seen him before, and he just says how much he loves the Irish music, and I ought to come over to his room because he wants to show me something. I said, okay. We went over to his room. He pointed behind his bed, there was a guitar case. He said, could you get that down for me? I took it out. It was a rather heavy case. Now, I expected to see some old Montgomery Ward guitar or something like that. I open it up, and there's a D'Angelico in there. Now, it's a copy, but it's still worth thousands of dollars. And I looked at him and I said, you really shouldn't have a guitar this nice here. He says, oh, this is kind of one that somebody gave me. This is my knockaround guitar. I said, your knockaround guitar? Well, what's your good guitar then? And he said, well, for the last 50 plus years, I've been playing on this 1959 Gibson 330, and that's pretty much what I've been playing. I said, whoa, you've been playing out quite a bit. He said, my whole life. He started to tell me his story. Sid told me that he grew up around the Bakersfield area in California and would spend a lot of time in his teen years in the shop of Paul Bigsby. He knew Leo Fender, and these are, of course, the inventors of the solid body electric guitar and all the gadgets that go with it. Sid told me that he was a blues guitar player and that in the 1950s he was the only white player in the Black Musicians Union. He played with Big J McNeely, and Big J gave him the name Porky Harris, a name which stuck through the 1950s and which Sid used to record with. He said he played with Roy Rogers. He said he was Mike Bloomfield's bass player. Then things get weird. He said he had to leave Chicago quickly because of the mafia, and that he went to Hollywood, where he did gun tricks and taught horse tricks and was Margot Hemingway's boyfriend at the time of her death, which he said was not a suicide. He went on about how he used to do rodeos, and he used to invite people like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. This is getting further and further out, and I'm thinking, what is this guy doing here if he's telling the truth? And if he's not, is this a delusional guy or something? When I got back to my shop, I went on the internet. I figured the easiest thing to verify was that he played with Michael Bloomfield. And indeed, I found recordings from 1964 where the bass playing was credited to Sidney Warner, and I found pictures. But something much stranger took place. In my shop was a guy named Mert. Mert's an elderly black gentleman, and I told him about Sid and Big J McNeely. He said, Big J's my cousin. He said, is this guitar player white? I said, yeah. He said, I remember him from my youth. I saw Big J's band, and I always thought to myself, what's this white guy doing in this all-black band? Because things were very segregated back then. And Mert went over and visited Sid. They had a lot to talk about. I went back and visited Sid again, and this time he had a lot of documents, newspaper clippings about his rodeos, pictures of him and Margot Hemingway. I began to realize that he wasn't making this stuff up. All this really happened. There's one fascinating piece of history that I could not unfold. He had a full length album in the can, maybe 57 or so. The other guitar player on his record with all his own compositions was Howard Roberts. He had all the top studio players, and his album got put on the shelf because the person who produced it got canned by Warner Brothers. I played with Sid and went through some of the things that were to be on this album. It sounded like the Allman Brothers. It sounded like Fleetwood Mac. He was at least 10 years ahead of his time. I tried to find out where they would have these tapes in the vault. I couldn't get to square one. But if that record had been released, Sid would probably be very, very well known, and he would have changed the course of music history. I see that I'm way over time, and I haven't even begun to tell some of the stories that he told me. A biography should be done on this man, but he moved around a lot. It would be real hard to get some of the information you'd need for a biography. What a fascinating character. Until next time, have a great weekend.